This is Monica Ramirez from the Heart of Artist Talk, and I'm presenting one of my dear sisters, Avila, and I have the pleasure to have her here. Oh, thank God you're hearing us. So, and Ruby is, she present herself because I have her here.
Okay, yeah, it's a little bit different. We had actually planned on doing the podcast from where I was at, but I was having issues with internet. So, it actually worked out better this way because it's our comfort zone. This is what we do already. Anyway, I've lived in the Valley for a vast majority of my life. I'm really a Valley native. I wasn't born in the Valley. I was actually born in San Antonio, Texas, and transplanted here in '89. But I mean, that's most of my life anyway. So um, I guess somewhere along the line, I was very drawn to not necessarily painting, but liking paintings. And we, before the mics actually went back on, we were talking about what was it that fueled me to paint. And I told her I didn't know if it was a gift by default thing that I got every Christmas by my hands, but maybe it was something that they were nurturing, that they saw in me. But either way, I took to it, and it was just always something that I did either in just to soothe myself if I was stressed or bored in class or sick at home, anything. I took to watercolors and mostly oils. I got a lot of oil sets. So, I mean, I took to that pretty well, and destroying my dad's paintbrushes. And
But it was a way for you also at the same time to express your emotions, or what it was there?
Oh, most definitely. Growing up as a kid, you don't, especially a kid in the Valley, if you're trying to be the good kid in the family, or in my case, it wasn't so much being the good kid in the family. I was very young, or so young. I was like 7 when I first had my first sibling come along. So at that point, I'd already spent 7 years by myself and kind of just exploring who I was as a young little individual. And you don't have a lot of outlets at that age, and it's not like you hop in your car and go anywhere. You kind of just stuck at home. And at that point, I think it was, a little bit different. The area that we lived in, there wasn't a whole lot for us to do, or for me to do anyway. And it was a way to express myself, without making too much noise or getting into trouble. And when you're the firstborn, you're a pleaser. You please your parents.
Before we continue, I just wanted to remark a little bit of the biography of Ruby, that her work is being exhibited in museums, in cultural centers, among private collectors, and in the following areas: in the Rio Grande Valley, in Dallas, San Antonio, San Marcos, Texas, Houston, Texas, El Paso, Texas, Washington, D.C., San Francisco, California, Los Angeles, California, Piedras Negras, Mexico, Venice, and Bari, Italy, where there is a permanent art exhibit in Venice of her work. She's also a curator of Art Awakenings, cultural events where she organized art exhibits and helped other artists too at the same time. So she is a professional international artist. Just to remark that from my dear sisters.
You see, you forget that.
You deserve to talk about that, because in my experience, they have teach us a society, the ego is bad. Don't believe too much in yourself, because if you believe too much in yourself, you are just an egoistic. So you stop believing who you are. So it is very hard to talk about you in the biographies, because we're trying to control the ego, but then we stop believing who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. She's reading this, and it's, yes, I have curated art shows, and I've exhibited in many places, and I forget that. It is part of the ego, because you're scared to take that on, and you're scared to own it. You really are scared to own it, even if it's something good and not necessarily something to feed the ego. As an artist, you are either very inflated, or you're very, I guess, deflated, because you have absolutely there's the ups and the downs, it's a roller coaster. It really is.
How was it in your stage of creation? Because we all are different. We all artists, we go into different stages of creations, and we have different needs, and when we are going to create, we have a process. But also you have a daughter.
Yeah.
So how that process of creation go with you with your own daughter.
Well, it's been a minute since I've painted, but the process is always the same. You don't sleep a whole lot. You don't sleep a whole lot. You still have to wake up early in the morning and get your child ready for school and go to meetings and go to work. And you're running on about maybe 2 hours of sleep or none at all if you're crazy like us.
But do you have a ritual? Because I do have a ritual when I paint. It's ridiculous, but I have my ritual every time I'm gonna start a new canvas. I go into process. I have to clear my area,
Yeah.
put paints in certain way. It's just a ritual. So what ritual do you use?
Well, prior, I mean, my life has obviously taken on a very different dynamic within the last year, but there were times when I used to paint on the floor of one of our old places, and I loved painting by the window, and it was just me, a shop light, my easel, and just bunched up in this little corner by the window painting. And I loved my little spot. That was my favorite. And that's when my child was small, and I could keep an eye on her, and it was very peaceful. You say she says she remembers it, because she does. And I would rinse my brushes out in the bathroom, and everything was done in almost complete silence. If I listened to anything, it was like buds in my ears. Uh, I was a night owl to the extreme. I was very delirious a lot of the time. I don't remember a lot of what happened during several years there. I don't know how I was functioning. There was, you skip down the line, we're in a new home, and I felt like painting one day. I needed a new space, and I just half-assed it. I didn't even paint the room completely. I painted half of it until it just felt different. And there was a space big enough for brighter light to bounce off the walls. And that's where I painted, also on the floor. It was just my favorite way to paint. From there, I moved out of that room and I took on an entirely different room in the house, which was the garage. And at that time, it was very odd because I'd stacked up palettes that I'd collected. I think they were like Pepsi palettes or something. And it was just so cozy to have a little platform. And I was completely surrounded by all my canvases. And I sat there probably for about a week without sleeping, just staring at like these blank canvases. And they were really overwhelming. They were really overwhelming. In fact, that was the beginning of the collection that's behind me.
These paintings were exhibited in STC. It is the South Texas Community College here in the Valley, and also they were exhibited somewhere else.
I have no idea. I wasn't living here anymore.
I remember they were exhibited somewhere else too. And well, how do you choose the colors that you're going to use? Because also every single artist, painter, they have their own palette, their own colors that they use. And it has to do with the, I don't know, with the personality or the mood or what. How do you choose your palette?
No, honestly, I had to turn around and look at the pieces I did have because several of them were from a different collection. So there's a few collections all thrown together here, and the palettes are very different in both of them. One of them is very, I don't know if it's politically correct to say it or not, but very ethnic looking. There's a lot of desert tones in it, and I think during that time I was kind of channeling a lot of my Mexican heritage, my Mexican roots there. And we had taken a pilgrimage to New Mexico, and there was just a lot of stuff that was going on that inspired these colors. It was a very introspective time in my life. The last ones, though, it was a lot of discovering other females. There was just some nasty stuff. There is nasty stuff going on in the world, man. And females get taken advantage of a lot. And I mean, with sex slaves and the whole nasty sex trade and whatnot, this last collection anyway, it was just very inspired by that. But I'm very subtle in the way I portray things, and I wanted them to look a little bit dreamier. And of course, I wasn't going to demean anybody by painting something grotesque, because that's not my style. I mean, that is some people's style, but not mine. And they're very soft. They're very, very soft. The colors in them are soft. Some of them are bold, but only because I needed to portray night in them. So they are like more solid colors, more bold colors that I chose for that.
And how long it takes you to create a painting?
I mean, if you go from the beginning, for part of this one, I sat there for a week in the dark, like not
From
sleeping, without doing anything. So if you count
14
that,
hours, 16 hours a day? Uh,
you're talking about 8 hours every night just staring at blank canvases before anything even happened. And
yeah.
after that, I think it was probably about 6 months to pump out 7 paintings, 5 paintings, something like that.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
Yes, because when you're going to have an art exhibit, you have to have a certain amount of
Yeah.
paintings. And so you have to create a collection or whatever you are going to be participating in. That's why she's talking about the 6 paintings for this art exhibit that we participate. And obviously, I would like to talk about the attachment to the paintings,
Mm.
because I know all artists, even if we create with hoping to sell,
Yeah.
that's something that we're going to talk in a bit. You get attached to your paintings,
Super attached.
right?
Yeah.
It is how it feels when you sell them at the same time, and you're
Mm.
happy, but how do you feel?
You know, I had a lady come up to me one day at one of our shows, and she offered me a lot of money for a really small painting. And I thought, this is so ridiculous. Like, why would you pay that amount for such a small painting? And part of that made me not want to sell it to her, just because I thought she was throwing her money in my face. But then when she came back over and over and over, and she said, look, you don't get it. Like, I love Frida. I love the style you painted her in. Like, it doesn't get better than that for me. And it kind of took me back a little bit. And I really saw the sincerity in what she was telling me. And I mean, yeah, who doesn't need an extra 400, $500? You know what I mean? Anybody could use that. But I still didn't want to sell it to her. She left, and I think I probably cried on the way home or bitched a whole lot. But somewhere in her home, I think she really enjoys her Frida. So that doesn't feel so bad. But the rest of them, yeah, I haven't wanted to get rid of them. It's very, very, very difficult.
Can you tell us your experience participating in art galleries, in art exhibits?
Oh man, it's a jungle out there, guys. I mean, as an artist, the world is your stage. It really is. And as a painter, you're not necessarily the actor on that stage, you're painting the actor. So you're taking things on from a different perspective. So your stage just gets way broader, and your shows just become broader. I mean, we've exhibited on cultural center steps out in 103-degree heat.
Oh my God.
It's still painting that way, all the way to, I don't know what,
The
like
fancy,
40,000 square foot factories.
but galleries,
We have beautiful galleries, amazing, gorgeous galleries, beautiful cultural centers.
museums.
Yes, museums. But that's what I mean. Like your stage just becomes way
But
broader.
how do you feel as an artist when you exhibit in any place of that?
It's fun. It's fun. There's a part of it where you're just, yes, you're ecstatic, but at the same time, you're kind of crapping your pants, because you're wondering, like, how the hell or what the hell was I thinking to have taken on such a huge endeavor, or such a small one, because we've had places that have been so tiny and not wacky, but just not your traditional gallery. Or we've even put stuff on the ceilings.
Yes.
And it's been a trip, because you're here wondering, like, oh my gosh, this is somebody's art piece. Like, if that falls, that's like $3,000 I owe somebody, like, halfway across the world. But you do it, you figure it out.
Yeah, that's true. what problems do you have seen exhibiting your work with galleries? Because there is a commonality in there. When you're building your art career, when you're already a established artist and you already have a gallery representation, you're fine.
Mhm.
But to get the gallery representation, what was your experience?
Mm, you have to be okay with rejection. You can't see rejection as rejection. You have to see rejection as a critique. And I guess I've received a lot of critiques. But you handle that well, or maybe you don't because I haven't painted in such a long time. But I don't know. It's a little bit different because dealing with the gallery, there's so many other things that you have to meet. There's so many other requirements and documents to sign. Things are a little bit more legit. It's not so thrown together or going with what the artist or the curator is feeling. It's things are rigid. They're very, very rigid. Critiques are rigid, very dry, and you learn real fast that the competition is out there. It's out there, and you're just this teeny tiny little fish in this gigantic
and
sea.
and you're dealing with the egos of the
Absolutely.
galleries,
Hmm.
of the artists, of the people that you're going to exhibit, and how that feels, all that, because there is a competition basically in there. It's not a unity and love and kumbaya. No,
No.
not at all. How it is?
Yeah, they're definitely not kumbaya hippies.
Yes.
Definitely not. No, these people, they don't care. I walked half a mile on a broken foot with, I don't know what, 13 paintings to have to walk back half a mile on a broken foot with 13 paintings. They don't give two shits. It's just like, hey, good try, kid. Like
Yes.
you're onto something.
Uh,
Don't stop.
don't forget driving 1,000 miles to get
Oh
there.
yeah. The driving 1,000 miles and I don't know, eating things that are outside of your element and
Yeah, to get
it's an
there,
adventure.
and then you get rejected.
Yeah. And it's okay though. That's why I said like you just have to take it on as an adventure. You can't see it as rejection. It's just that's the best critique you're gonna get. Like some people pay money for that. And yeah, we obviously paid money for that. We drove there, and we traveled and stayed for a good while. But as an experience, you take in that everything. You take in the adventure as a whole. And had it not been for that, I wouldn't have pumped out an entirely different collection after that.
Yeah, that's when you did the collection of the valley.
Yeah, really. That was the painting in the back is but yeah, the one with the cactus. And that in the back is myself, just basic Ruby in a hoodie that had not slept. That was actually a picture of me moving paint tubes in the garage, sitting on top of the pallet pedestal built for myself. And I just happened to shoot a picture of it and I thought, it just looked like I was constructing something, which I was, but I wasn't really doing crap at the time. I was just staring at all these blank canvases. So I started thinking, well, what am I constructing? Well, I was building myself slowly. I've been building myself slowly. So that was just my roots. That was a causeway and a lot of shipment containers. I mean, that's kind of us, right? We're like just small containers of information, of experiences, whatever. There's the Alamo and the Hemisphere, and there's all kinds of buildings there that kind of just represent little pieces of me. But
And I have a question. What people usually they have a wrong conception about artists. They think that we have it all easy and we sing kumbaya and we all love and unity and so forth. They have a very different vision of what a real artist life is, because we have to pay bills, we
mhm.
have families, and at the same time we have the need of create. So what would you tell to I'm not talking about artists. That's the second one. I'm talking about the spectators, how they see artists.
Y'all gotta back off a little bit sometimes. Like y'all expect too much from people. We're still human. Like we feel, and then we feel like 1,000 times that.
And they come and
Um,
tell you from painting that you're selling in $1,000. Here's 100.
uh, for a while that felt kind of demeaning to me, but I think that's why I've grown such a huge attachment to my paintings because I know their worth. And I know that those are not just maybe 36 or 60 or 100 hours that went into painting something. That's a lifetime of experience. Those are personal dreams and just personal messages or prayers or conversations, hidden jokes. That's everything in one painting. Like, you can't tell me here's something that you are pricing for $1,000. Here's $100, dude. No, take it, shove it. Like, keep your $100. Like, I don't want your $100. Go buy your wife dinner with that afterwards. Suck it up. Like,
Because people have this tendency to do this to artists. It's like, oh, I pay you half price, or
mm,
things like that. It's like they would not do that to a lawyer. They would not do that to a bookkeeper. Why they do it to creative people? Trying to cut them off, and that's something so typical.
it is.
So people need to understand that art is also another job, and it's a very important actually
Mm,
because we're storytellers of the time of the right now and the here. And we do it through paintings, other ones doing it through music, and the music in that time, or that is present in this moment, in this era, and this time. And we deserve to get paid the same. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast,
mhm.
so that to educate and promote artists, because we deserve that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not just myself, but so many artists. One, for instance, paints. She's been painting like way longer than I have, and I've seen people try to lowball her on her stuff, and she knows sometimes I just threw that together and I painted that on a cigar box because hey, what, I had to go to a fair, whatever. I had to show up with merch. But you can't tell her that that's not worth $100 if that's what she's asking for it. No, she's got a nice, long resume tucked away that says that's not worth $100. Like, you can't just lowball somebody like that. So no, I really appreciate her efforts and doing this for the artist community. And I'm kind of disappointed that I was the first one because so many of y'all were so scared to do this. This is really sad. I mean, I know I made a comment earlier in the week and said that I was probably gonna cry, but that's just because I cry about everything. I laugh too hard and cry.
Artists usually are shy. Artists are usually it's very hard for they just like to present their work and hide behind the scenes. You
Yeah.
go to an art gallery and an art opening, the artist is in the background. It's with between all the people, but they're just shy to tell you, oh yes, this is my art piece. That's something that a tendency that artists had after two galleries that I had for many years. And that's what I learned. The artists are gonna hide. Just a few of them are actually gonna show up and actually say, oh yes, this is my piece. But the majorities are gonna hide. And that's something that it is hard to get out of your shell. It's hard to, I know, to do a podcast, but we deserve to be listened, and we deserve to be seen, and we deserve to be appreciated. We're storytellers again. That's my best description of an artist. Or what would be your best description for an artist?
We are storytellers. Even as a bartender, what I do during the day, all I do is tell stories all day long. Like, I hear, oh, Miss Ruby, you're so full of stories. I am. I'm absolutely full of stories. I soak in everything around me, and everything can become a story. Like, this will be a story one day.
Yes.
This will be the butt of many jokes.
And what would you tell an artist that is just starting their career?
you
What
gotta you
advice?
gotta grow a tough skin. You gotta grow a real tough skin. There's Like, I don't know how they say that there's no crybabies in baseball. Yeah, there's nothing but crybabies in in art. But you know, I don't know. Cry,
Explain me
what
why.
cry, wipe up your tears and move on, you know? Like if you're gonna cry about it, paint it. Because otherwise like, you're not doing anything about it.
And exhibit your work, guys. It's like I have gone to many garage
Mm.
sales, literally,
Yeah.
when artists have died and their family are selling their art in a garage sale. Why? Because they were too afraid to exhibit their work. They and the family did not appreciate it because they were unknown artists. And you want to actually create who you are. You want to create you're creating something and you're leaving a legacy. And if you leave a legacy, probably your family are not gonna sell your art in a garage sale. So show your art, exhibit your art, have the guts. We all can do it. We did it. And what else would I like to add to that?
um it's okay to take a hiatus. It's absolutely okay to take a hiatus. Many artists have done it. um I think as hard as other people are on artists, we're even harder on ourselves. We can have the tendency to become very depressed if we're not creating. uh you know, we feel very tiny when we're not creating, and sometimes we feel very huge when we are. But it's a combination of the two all the time. But you know, it's just be don't be as harsh on yourself. Like just even if you aren't necessarily painting anything at the time, just soak it in. Don't forget to soak in every single moment because that's gonna feel something. That will feel something along the way. I mean, I feel it. I get the itch every once in a while, and I might just be watching anime in bed, but I pull out pens and my bed's covered in markers and paper and all kinds of stuff in no time. But it's just you don't just give it up entirely. I mean, there's no real hiatus for a painter or an artist. It's just you might you might be hiding from society, but you know, the art's just still with you. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yes, because also artists, we have artist blocks.
Yeah.
And I believe writers have our writer blocks, also musicians, actors, all of us, all the
Mm.
artists in general, we have blocks. How do you deal with them?
Mm.
It's a tough one, but we all pass through that.
How do I deal with them? That's a tough one. You know, it varies. When I was living in Colorado, for instance, I wasn't really painting a whole lot during that time, but I think it's because I was just soaking in my environment. I hiked a lot. I hiked a lot and I took a lot of pictures. I just tried to find anything visually appealing to go to, whether it was a pretty background, or at the time I was also doing makeup. So I wasn't necessarily painting, but I was painting people's faces and creating art on people's faces every single day. So, I mean, either way, I was still finding an outlet to create.
Mhm.
There's no, like I said, there's no such thing as a roadblock necessarily. It's, you just haven't emerged back into society again.
And it's like changing media. It's like I notice it with myself when I go to an artist block, painter's block, I go then to the writer's block, or then I go to the sculptures, to the doing sculpture, and then so forth. And then after that, I go again to painting, and like that. That's how I deal with the blocks that
Mhm.
I go through, and just changing scenery.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I tend to do it with jobs though, because I feel like I can tackle both at the same time. For instance, now I make drinks, you know, and
Very
at
artistically.
one point I was baking, and that's also creating, and people look to you for that. Like you become a person's favorite baker, you become a person's favorite bartender. Um, and it's funny because the whole time that you're creating things, you don't even realize that you're kind of your own therapist. and then you become the therapist for others, whether they're eating their feelings or drinking them away. You're like at the back, you're in the background. You're somehow,
But you also always had a facility. You're a natural healer, but
maybe, but it's, I don't know. It's, or maybe it's just having a way with people. I don't know what it is, but it's just, I don't know. Artists are charismatic people, and if they're not doing what their specialty is, they're gonna find another one, like what you do.
what would you differentiate an artist from a regular people, like someone that do not paint or do not create anything, play music or sing or act, or someone that is not into the art world? What is the difference between the creative person and the non-creative person?
Mm, I think there's those that appreciate the creation, and then there's those that have to create. Maybe they don't have such a large appreciation because they're not as educated, or they're not as, what some people would say, cultured, but um that can grow. I mean, an appreciation for something can grow, a love for something can grow. It's just, like you said, the artist has to not be so scared and just come out of their shell more, and educate their their community, really, that, hey, I'm here, this is us. Like, really, when we paint, we're painting everything around us, and this, I mean, they're as much a part of the painting as our small story is a part of the painting.
Hmm.
Maybe they just don't see it that way yet.
I feel that uh, many times we feel judged by them because we prefer to paint than be cleaning the house. We prefer to start creating something that start dusting or washing clothes. We still do it, but if you ask us what we prefer to do, is obviously we will create. And there's some people that actually prefers, like I prefer to go and do numbers, bookkeeping, and they're very good doing that, but they don't understand the creative side. They go to sleep at a certain time, they wake
Yeah,
up a certain time. An artist, we don't have hours.
no, we don't.
The art comes at any time in the day or the night.
Yeah, it does. And in many forms. I tattooed my toes in the middle of the night a few weeks back, just out of nowhere.
Do you consider that? I know we're going to get into a little bit more of spiritual, that I'm trying not to get into much into the spiritual part in in this podcast. But then it sounds for me like we receive messages at any time, and that's when
Painting,
we feel like we need to paint at that time.
painting is spiritual. It is very spiritual. I think artists are maybe very in tune with a different part of themselves, and being in tune with a different part of yourself. You open yourself up to a lot, whether it be messages or channeling or whatever people want to call it, um, a pull. I don't know. Some people say, like, I was just drawn to do something or inspired to do something in the night. I don't care what you call it. I've definitely felt it, and at crazy times. And I don't know. Yeah, there's absolutely everything spiritual about painting. I don't think there's anything wrong about it. I mean, if it wasn't the case, we wouldn't have the Sistine Chapel.
Yes. Uh, what is your next step as an artist?
To paint something else, probably.
What will be your dream life as an artist? You have the choice, and here,
Hmm.
Ruby, you don't have to worry about anything. What will be your dream as an artist?
Um, that's a really tough one. That's a really tough one because, like I said, the dynamic of my life has changed a lot in the last year. So I'm kind of on a new adventure to rediscovering myself and just taking on different stuff that I hadn't been able to do before. And I think that dream has changed a little bit. The dream has changed a
Yes.
lot. And I think if I were to put something to it right now that I have thought of, maybe it allowing for travel, for more travel, seeing more and being inspired by the lands palettes really. Uh, I know Colorado is real pretty, and I know that the next collection is probably going to include a lot of those colors in it. I don't know what'll come out of it, but
But what would be your dream life? Like someone managing your art and you just create?
oh heck yeah, that sounds great.
Yes, I believe that's the dream life for any painter. Someone sell it for me, let me just create.
Yeah.
And and I and I just go to the art exhibit and be pretty.
And sometimes not even that. Like sometimes you just want to be able to hide at the art exhibit, not have anybody ask you anything.
But at the same time, we've been curators and we've been the organizers of
Yes.
art exhibits.
So we've had to be the face many times.
Yes, we had. So how did that work at the same time?
Ah, that's really funny, that you asked that because the only thing I could think of when you said that is this one experience we had in San Antonio where we didn't think anyone knew us together. And this young guy in some really risque shorts. He just came out of the woodworks and from across this huge gallery yells, Monica Ramirez, is that you? And we both turn around, and I guess
The glasses
and
from the
we
80s.
yeah, and we were dressed very well. We were dressed really well that night for our exhibit. And you're kind of taken back when someone looks like they just popped out of a rave. I mean, I don't knock anybody. I like raves too, but it was just funny. It was very funny to see ourselves in that light, dressed so formal and not. But it's cool because you see that, I don't know, you see that full circle of your art inspiring all walks of life, and that's
Yes.
awesome.
And it felt like when we were organizing art exhibits, actually we were pushing people to start creating and exhibiting their work.
Yeah, we
We
were.
worked with many artists that they were just starting.
Absolutely. I mean, if I look back at it now, I see so many of these painters that was really, I mean, not to toot our horns or anything like that, but that was really a springboard for a lot of them. And it's been awesome to see their growth, because you don't, like I said, I don't want to take credit for any of that, but it's just cool to know that you were part of that story. That's what unity is. That's what it is to commune with your artists
And
and to
feel
really help each other out.
and feel happy and
Mhm.
because they did it.
It is. It's very gratifying. It's extremely gratifying. I know that there was a few ladies at the time that we met in San Antonio, and I'm not going to mention names or
No,
anything. I'm not here to really, put anybody else's work out there. This is about me right now. I'm just joking.
it is. It's
but
Rubyavilaart.
but I look at some of her stuff sometimes because I do follow her on Facebook, and I always shout out to her, hey man, that your stuff's looking great. And she was just this older lady who I think just felt kind of uncomfortable with who she was or how she appeared. And to look back at her now and see how she's just really come into who she is as an individual, even in her older age, and to see where her work is at now is super cool because that gives me hope. I'm 35. I don't mind saying that, but I say it gives me hope because it doesn't, there's no age limit on painting and becoming a painter or an artist. Like it's just one day you pick it up and you keep going with it or you don't. And like I said, there's no age limit. She was probably like early 50s when I met her. And I mean, that was like 9 years ago. So she's probably close to 60 now. She's spunky as all get out. She's cool though, and she's come a long way.
Yes, I have seen that transformation and it feels great.
It is. It's neat.
Yes.
It's neat to know that, some people maybe didn't feel themselves and you felt them enough to
or
push them along the way.
or they did not believe enough in themselves that they can do it.
Yeah, it's exactly
and
it.
and we did help in that area.
Hmm. I mean, well, when you throw so many events in an area and you're nurturing that area's artist community, that means nurturing the one that has no confidence in their work to the most inflated egos.
Yeah,
And it's not your job to decipher in between. It's just your
yeah.
job to love on them the whole way through and just be there to push them, and to
Yes.
push their art. Yeah, that's all you're there for. And whatever they do with it from there is up to them. And I don't know. I've enjoyed seeing that. It's cool. I mean, maybe I'm not as far as where I would like to be,
Oh, good.
but
We'll get there.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, like I said, new dynamic, new work, right?
Yes, a new collection.
Absolutely, yeah.
A new
It's
collection is a
exciting.
new start. Every time that an artist go to a block, when they start again, they start a new collection, a new palette, a new colors, new everything, right?
Yeah. The next ones, since I've spent so much time in the snow, all blank canvases. I'm just gonna sign my
Just
name in the corner.
with a black dot in there, it says, "Oh, that's Ruby."
That's Ruby in the snow. You were here.
Oh, man. Do you have something else to say
Um,
before we close down?
my coffee got cold.
And the next week, in the Heart of Artist Talk, we're gonna have Cari Franco. That her art, she also do art exhibits, and she's gonna start a podcast too.
Really
And
cool.
she's part of a group of artists that they're all females from Pintoras Mexicanas. That we are part of it too, and it's gonna be in Spanish. I just let you know. Then hopefully I'll see you the next week. Thank you guys. It
Thank you.
was our pleasure
It was fun.
to have you here. And you see the replay, just please hashtag replay. I will appreciate that. Thank you. Bye-bye.